Whatever it is that I had scheduled for that day, if that's not part of how I need to get through my day in a mentally healthful and successful way, I will move it and reschedule.
Ever since he was a boy, Bruce Cohen wanted to win an Oscar. That dream came true in 1999 when the film he co-produced, American Beauty, won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Since then, Bruce has gone on to produce countless other critically acclaimed films, including Big Fish, Milk, and Silver Linings Playbook. Bruce has also produced for Broadway and for television, including the beloved cult classic Pushing Daisies. In addition to his work as a producer, Bruce has been a champion for many causes that are important to him, including mental health and LGBTQ rights. Bruce joined me in New York City to talk about all of this and more for this episode of Inner Space.
We're here in New York City, and I am thrilled and delighted to have the opportunity to chat for a bit with a very dear friend, Bruce Cohen. Bruce is many things that we're going to talk about today, but he is a producer of some amazing films, American Beauty, which he won the Academy Award for, also Milk, Silver Linings Playbook, which we're going to talk a fair amount about today, and also a producer of musical on Broadway and on television. You've done television events. There's really nothing out there that you don't touch or in some way get involved in. Right? I haven't.
Well, I have a great love of producing.
Yes, you do.
I feel like producing is a little bit an underappreciated art and job because everything needs producing.
Yes.
When you get out of bed in the morning, you are producing your day. You produce your family, you have to produce your marriage. If you're married, you certainly have to produce your children if you have kids. Anyone who has kids knows that just to get the child through the day and to school and homework done and to bed from every day takes producing. So once I sort of figured that out, I really, one of my passions is expanding all the different types of things that I can produce and get to produce, and my great love is producing as many different types of things in as many different venues as possible.
Well, you do it extraordinarily well. I heard about this movie, Love and Mercy. And for those of our listeners who don't know the film, it's a great film about the life of Brian Wilson and his journey through his own mental health, mental illness. Someone had said to me, this film is really important. So you said to me, go see the movie, and if you think that it's of value to your mission, let me know. And so I saw the movie, and I immediately sent you a text. I said, Bruce, this is an amazing film. And so you just found the right people to talk to in the industry that led to us not only working with Brian Wilson, but Bill Pohlad and Paul Dano and Oren Moverman. And it's just that gift. You're incredibly generous. And that's, yes, you have the vision, but you just have an amazing heart. So thank you for always responding. Doesn't mean you always can do what I would love to make happen, but you respond, and that's a gift and rare I think, in your industry.
Well, thank you for saying that. What I was thinking about, other than being humbled and really thankful, and it was beautiful to hear all that from you because you are one of my activist heroes. And one of the skills that I've honed in my years of producing definitely is connecting people, and you're a great connector as well. I was having this realization, I'm a big fan of the win-win. And I think especially in these incredibly divisive times where there are forces at work that want to make everything win or lose, black or white, yes or no, and actually the world, that's not how the world is constructed. I'm a die-hard optimist and glass half full kind of guy. I have all this evidence that I could present to anyone about what a hugely effective and successful tool that has been for my life. You're never going to get me off my personal belief that good breeds good and the people are wonderful and the positivity does breed positivity, and I have all of this evidence for me that that's clearly true. So I think especially now what's underutilized is the idea of value added, the idea of win-win, the idea that actually so many things can be good for everyone involved, and that was a perfect example. I'm sitting in Love and Mercy. I'm creatively moved by the film, which is rare. There's only, that handful of films each year that you think, wow, this is a work of art, and this is brilliantly done. As a producer and lover of films, I get very excited when I'm in a theater and I'm watching one of those films. Plus, it's the main idea of the film, of course, because it's about Brian Wilson, is mental illness and mental health. And I thought that was beautifully portrayed. So I immediately thought of you. And it immediately occurs to me, in this case, it's a win-win-win. It'd be a win for Barbara because this film is going to be a great platform for mental health issues. It's going to be a win for the film because it's fantastic PR for them. And exactly what you dream of as a filmmaker is that your movie is going to have resonance and relevance beyond just as a film, but actually as something making social change in the world. And frankly, honestly, but absolutely, it's a win for me because it's going to be good karma. It's going to be good connections for me to be able to call Bill Pohlad, who's a brilliant filmmaker, who we talk about doing stuff together. Elizabeth Banks, who's a friend who I'm obsessed with, who's one of my favorite people in the world, who we've done great political work together and want to do great film work together. And I knew that matching all of you to each other, Paul Dano, who's so talented, and Zoe Kazan, his wife, is an old friend, and they're just best things ever, and they have a new kid and are getting on the journey of learning. It's yet another thing they have to produce. And Oren Muverman. So win-win-win. Yes. And I wish more people would try it because that's how we are going to make change and keep the world moving in the right direction as opposed to in the wrong direction.
And I love what you said about how it works for you. That energy that goes out, it just comes back in. It feeds our soul, doesn't it, doing that kind of good?
Absolutely. And a lot of the good that I do that feeds my soul takes a tremendous amount of work. When you're actually producing a parade or a rally or a TV show or a movie or a live event or whatever it is, that's a tremendous amount of work.
Yes.
And a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of energy. What does not take any work and a little bit of time and just some passion is to agree to get on a phone call or come to a meeting and listen to what everyone is wanting to do and hearing. And I'm the first person and really working on this even more. One of the things we're hearing about now with all the changes that are happening is how listening is so important. And especially white men who have been notoriously gotten an F across the boards for listening. We want to be talking. We don't want to hear what anyone else is saying, especially if they're not white or male. So I'm the first person, and trying even more so, if I don't have anything to contribute, I will listen. I have no need for my ego or for any reason to open my mouth. However, if I have an idea that I think is good and I'm confident enough in my abilities and my vision and my passion over all these years, if I think the idea is good, more often than not, I'm right. It's actually a really good idea, and it's going to be value added. It's going to be a win-win-win, and so it's incredibly exciting to me the number of times now, and the venues and the types of productions where I know enough to have a really value-added good idea continues to grow. So I get on these calls in marketing and publicity and advertising, in budgeting, all these different areas that I might not have been able to have a great idea years ago, but now I can jump on a call that friends have asked me to join. I can, in a minute, just hear what they're saying, come up with an idea that is really gonna help them achieve their vision, then I'm off the phone. It's the best karma, best way to start your day in the world, because it didn't take that much, it didn't take work. It was just time, listening, and then contributing an idea that hopefully is really going to make whatever project they're working on a better project.
A gift to them, and again, it comes back to you. It's that energy.
Multifold, and one of the simplest but most thrilling ways is when I see it come to fruition and all this amazing things are happening, and I get to go home to my husband and be like, that was my idea.
That's
He's
great.
like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't necessarily have to do every part of it.
No, I
Isn't
didn't have
that
to do any
lovely?
part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that brings me to how you and I met. I do not remember the exact year. I remember the exact place because it was at the White House. It was a White House event. And we were seated at the same table, and we struck up this conversation, and I didn't know that you were beginning to work in the veteran space, and this was with the Obama administration, and First Lady Michelle Obama and Dr. Biden were just joining forces, and you didn't know the work that I was doing, but talk a little bit about, because I was so excited to meet you, and because I was like, okay, here's somebody in the entertainment space that we can use what you were bringing to push up, to elevate this conversation about the needs of our service members and our veterans. And I remember when we met, walking away and thinking, this is such an interesting man, because you had shared with me that you hadn't served, but you were clearly so passionate about helping, giving back, and this was in the height of the war, was sort of roaring. So talk about how that came to be.
Well, this was actually a great activist story, which was on the night that President Obama was elected president. It was dampened considerably for us in California, because what also happened that night is Prop 8 passed.
Yes.
And Prop 8, the California Supreme Court had allowed gay marriage several months earlier. The right wing put a measure on the ballot, Prop 8, to take that right away, and it passed. On the night that people were voting for Obama, they were also voting to take gay marriage away in California, which clearly we felt showed that our side did not do a good enough job of explaining to people what this is, what it should be. Because if you're voting for Obama and for Prop 8, you're not understanding. Right. You're either not understanding his position or what Prop 8 is, one or the other. Myself and a bunch of other folks, a wonderful group, decided to take that to the Supreme Court. And it was Chad Griffin, who went on to be president of the Human Rights Campaign, Rob Reiner, his wife Michelle, Dustin Lance Black, who I had gotten involved because he worked on Milk and won the Oscar for screenplay on Milk, which is how I knew Dustin. And Chad's partner at the time in their consulting firm was a wonderful woman named Christina Shockey, and we were all on the board together of the group that took that case to the Supreme Court. We hired David Boies and Ted Olson, who had been famous foes on the opposite side of Bush v. Gore. So that was a great idea of win-win. It's like let's bring both sides together, and had a ultimately victorious and incredible journey to the Supreme Court, and marriage was brought back to California as part. But the Prop 8 case, the Windsor case, and the Obergefell case were really the three Supreme Court cases that ended up making marriage a right federally. About a couple months after we started, because it was the new months of the Obama administration, Christina called us and said, I have some sad news, but some really good news. I have to resign from the board of this case, and I have to move from Los Angeles. And we were like, why? And she said, because I've accepted the job to be Michelle Obama's press secretary. So about a month or two after that, she called me and she said, are you available to come meet with me at the White House about a project I want to talk to you about? And I said, yes, I am. I'd never been to a meeting at the, actually, I had been to a meeting at the White House before in the Clinton administration on LGBT rights, but nevertheless, it was incredibly exciting. So I went to talk to Christina, and she told me that Michelle Obama and Dr. Biden were going to start joining forces, their initiative to support veterans, and would I be the entertainment industry liaison? And I knew right away, I was excited about the opportunity to do that. I was incredibly, anything, you had me at Michelle Obama, it was a no-brainer, but it also struck me, I kind of knew right away that this was the start of a new journey, because I'd never thought about veterans, even though actually my father is a veteran, funnily enough. But it was not an issue that I was concerned about. I thought I was, solely involved in progressive politics and LGBT issues. And so I sensed that I was about to embark on an incredibly moving and emotional and growth journey the more I got involved with veterans and servicemen and women in these issues, and I was certainly right about that. That meeting where we met was a conference that the White House was hosting on joining forces that Got Your Six played a big part in, and that's why I was there.
But you were one of the first sort of partners, friends, while everyone was running around also looking at jobs and education, very important, you understood, you got the mental health issue, you got that this is important and this is touchy and this is sensitive and this is challenging. And it was, a little bit after that you called me to tell me you had this new film. And that film was Silver Linings Playbook. It was really the first film, in my humble opinion, in the modern age to take on mental health in a realistic way and sort of pull back the curtain and say, it's all of us. That film, for me, it's one of my favorite Bruce films. Is it still one of your favorite experiences?
Absolutely. Carrie Fisher, the extraordinary Carrie Fisher, had been one of my best friends. And so that was my entrance point into mental health issues. She was a tremendous mental health activist. Yes. She was one of the first people ever talking about manic depression and being public about the fact that she had it and how it affected her and what the intersection was between manic depression and addiction, which were two things that she struggled with her entire life and that ultimately led to her untimely death. So I think that's why my heart and mind was open to mental health issues and why it struck such a chord in me, because I had both personally experienced it with her and also was familiar with her activism. With Silver Linings Playbook, that film's approach to mental health, and it was twofold, because Matthew, who had written the novel, he had worked in mental health institutions, and he had done an extraordinary amount of very close and careful research because he really wanted to get it right. Mm-hmm. So the book was fact-checked, if you would. Everything in the novel, the meds and the journey was all factually correct. But then David O. Russell came in, and David's connection was very personal because his son struggles with these issues, which David was public about. And so he had lived it and he had seen it. And his goal was to forget about the research and forget about the experts. And with the foundation of the characters and the story from the novel, to write what he knew. And, he really saw Pat Solitano as his son, and he wanted to get that across. And I remember when I was partnered with Dan Jinks, who we had done American Beauty and Milk and Big Fish together, David had sent us an early draft of the script because he was trying to get it made, and I was just stunned. I mean, I thought it was one of the most beautiful, powerful things I had read, and the authenticity of it was just leaping off every page. And these two characters you just never seen in, or rarely do you see characters in mainstream studio type films that are so, it's a romantic comedy. They have every quality of romantic comedy, a hero and a heroine, and yet they're also having these intense mental health issues, incredibly sad, incredibly dark, incredibly dramatic, and that collision of those two tones I just thought was absolutely spectacular. And then David went off to make The Fighter, so Silver Linings Playbook got put away for a while, and then years later, when he was ready to make the film, he called me and said, would you want to come on board to produce this with me? And he was like, I have this movie, Silver Linings Playbook. I'm like, oh, no, I know. You sent that to me 5 years ago. It was one of the best things I've ever read. He said, I did? I'm like, yeah.
You talked earlier, and this show, Inner Space, is all about the gift that we're hoping to pass on to people who listen, so that they think about their inner space differently. We all have our different levels of comfort with that inside part of ourselves. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes we're suffering, we're struggling. By bringing on guests like you and others who can talk about their journeys, talk about their crafts, our goal is to do our part to create a healthier world and share stories, which you've been very generous today. One of the other things we want to do is to help people think about if they are struggling, if they are suffering, how to take care of themselves, how to take care of the people they love. And so before we end today, you talked earlier about how your giving of yourself and your connecting dots is so good for you, and how you've seen that over and over again. You also mentioned that the work you do is exhausting. When you're in a project, it is demanding, and anybody who has produced anything, let alone the scale that you work at. So take it inside a little bit, if you would, and how do you take care of you? What are the things that you've learned that are really important to taking care of you and to taking care of your family and the people you love? What do you do?
I think it's all a circle, because I do think the more good stuff you put out into the world, the more it comes back to you tenfold, the better your karma is. That makes you feel good, that gives you happiness. That's a positive all along the way. One of my methods is I've really given myself permission to be the master of my own schedule. Mm-hmm. I do not get stressed out. I'm constantly rearranging and rescheduling things if I have something that needs my attention sooner, and I don't stress out about that. I feel like if there's anything that I've earned, it's the right to own my own day, and that I need the peace of mind of accomplishing what I need to accomplish. And if the lunch or meeting or plan or phone call or whatever it is that I had scheduled for that day, if that's not part of how I need to get through my day in a mentally healthful and successful way, I will move it and reschedule. Mm-hmm. And I have found, my hypothesis was people will understand, especially the people who my time with them is because they ask me for something and I'm happy. Yes, I'll read your script. Yes, I'll have a meeting. Yes, I'll sit down. Yes, I'll give you some ideas. That's all well and good until the point where now I actually have something that is pressing that I need to do, that is either I'm getting paid for it or it involves my daughter or my husband. Mm-hmm. So I really give myself permission to be the master of my own schedule. That may sound, to some people, that might not be like a key to their inner existence, but for a producer who's trying to get all these things accomplished, who's constantly bit off more than I can chew, who's constantly saying yes to all these things that I have no reason to say yes to, that's how I do it, is because I know in my mind, yes, I've said yes to it, but if I can't get to it, that's okay. Right. I'll get to it next week.
Well, it's you clearly, and I think that's such a great point to stop on, boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yes.
You
gotta do that.
That's how you put the good into the world. Yes. If you're exhausted, if you're stressed, you're not going to be good to anyone. Yes. So better to the short term, set a boundary. That person might be sad that they didn't get to see you that day, but you've got boundaries are a key to mental health. Yes. And if you've set them and if you can keep them in a positive, loving way, then you can continue to go out and do good in the world.
I don't think there's anything else to say. I think that's a perfect place to end. Thank you, Bruce, for coming.
Thank you, Barbara.
I adore you.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank
I adore you.
I want a hug.
Hugs.
It's always a pleasure talking to Bruce. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Bruce for the great work you do. Check out DCP Entertainment for more on inner space, and be on the lookout for more conversations about mental health.